We think of money as neutral, a simple tool for trade. But what if it isn't? What if money itself has been weaponized, not to empower us, but to control us? Because behind every empire, every war, every revolution, there's always been one silent force shaping who wins, who loses, and who pays the price. And that force isn't ideology, it's money. But not the kind you hold in your wallet, the kind created out of nothing by those who decide who gets rich, who stays poor, and who owes whom forever. This is the story of how money became a weapon to control the modern world. How money became a weapon to control the modern world. Long before money ruled us, it served us. In ancient societies, money was real. Gold, silver, copper, it was scarce, heavy and backed by labor and land. When Rome minted coins, the emperor's face symbolized stability, a promise of value. But every ruler faced the same temptation, the power to print. When the state could create money, it could fund wars, expand empires, and buy loyalty without asking the people for taxes. But there was a price. Rome learned it the hard way. To fund endless wars, emperors began debasement, mixing cheaper metals into gold coins while pretending they were still pure. At first, nobody noticed. Then prices rose, trust collapsed, and by the time citizens realized their coins were worthless, the empire itself was crumbling. It was the first recorded case of money turned into a weapon, not against enemies, but against its own people. As Europe rebuilt after Rome's fall, trade returned, but gold was scarce, so merchants invented credit. Instead of carrying gold, they carried promises, handwritten notes, redeemable for metal later. And this was the turning point. Because whoever controlled credit, controlled commerce. In Florence, the Medici family mastered this game. They funded kings, popes, and wars, not through armies, but through ledgers. They discovered the secret that power no longer depended on swords, it depended on debt. A king could be overthrown, a nation could fall, but debt lives on. It became the invisible chain connecting rulers to bankers, and it laid the foundation for the financial empires that still control the world today. By the 18th century, Europe's powers, Britain, France, Spain, realized that wars were won not by courage, but by credit. Armies ran on funding, and funding came from those who could issue loans. The Bank of England, founded in 1694, was the model. It lent money to the crown in exchange for interest paid by the people through taxes. It was genius. The government got endless spending power, the bankers got endless returns. Debt became national, money became political. As the British Empire expanded, its currency, the pound sterling, became the world's gold-backed standard, and through it, Britain didn't just conquer land, it conquered trade. But every empire that masters money eventually turns it into a weapon. When Britain taxed the American colonies without representation, it wasn't about tea, it was about monetary control. The American Revolution was, at its core, a rebellion against who controlled the currency. And yet even after independence, that battle wasn't over. By the 20th century, America had become the world's industrial heart, but its financial system was chaotic. In 1910, a secret meeting took place on Jekyll Island, Georgia. A handful of bankers and politicians gathered to draft a new central banking law. Out of that meeting came the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. It was sold as a safeguard, a way to stabilize markets and prevent panics. But the reality was darker. The US government handed over the power to create money not to Congress, not to the people, but to a private banking system. Every dollar printed from that day forward would be borrowed with interest, and every citizen would bear that interest through inflation and taxes. The result? Money no longer represented value, it represented debt. And from that moment, the modern world was built not on wealth, but on obligation. World War II left Europe in ruins. America emerged as the world's creditor, holding 2/3 of all gold reserves. At Bretton Woods in 1944, world leaders created a new system. The US dollar would be the world's reserve currency, backed by gold. Every other nation would tie its money to the dollar. For a time, it worked. The global economy boomed, confidence was high, but behind the scenes, something was happening. America was printing more dollars than it had gold to back. By the late 1960s, countries like France began demanding their gold back. So, in 1971, President Richard Nixon made a historic move. He ended the dollar's link to gold. Money became pure paper, unlimited, floating, faith-based. That day, money lost its last connection to reality. And it became the perfect weapon of manipulation. Because now, governments could print at will. Wars could be funded without approval. And inflation, the silent tax, could quietly erode the value of everything you own. Once the dollar became unanchored, the entire world economy turned into a debt machine. Nations borrowed to fund growth. Corporations borrowed to expand. People borrowed to survive. In the 1980s, developing countries were flooded with loans, much of it from Western banks under the watch of the IMF and World Bank. But when interest rates spiked, those nations couldn't pay. Their economies collapsed, and the solution offered more loans in exchange for control. Privatize your industries, cut your public services, hand over your resources. Debt became the new colonialism. No armies, no invasions, just balance sheets. The same formula repeated again and again from Latin America to Africa to Asia. Economic dependency replaced political independence. And behind the polite language of aid and stability lay a simple truth: money had become the new empire. By the 21st century, the weaponization of money had evolved. It was no longer just about debt, it was about access. The US dollar wasn't just the world's currency, it became the world's control system. Every international transaction passes through dollar networks like SWIFT. This means the United States and the financial institutions aligned with it can freeze, block, or isolate entire nations with a few keystrokes. No bombs, no armies, just financial exclusion. In recent years, we've seen it again and again. Countries cut off from the dollar system, assets seized, markets frozen. It's called sanctions, but it's really economic warfare. And as global debt soars past $300 trillion, even developed nations are prisoners of the system they created. Because whoever controls the currency, controls the world. Now, the next phase is here, and it's far more dangerous. Central banks around the world are testing central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. They promise efficiency, security, and modernization, but beneath that, something deeper lurks. Digital money can be programmed. It can expire, it can be tracked, it can be limited. Imagine money that only works in certain stores, or disappears if you don't spend it fast enough, or gets shut off if you protest, dissent, or refuse to comply. This is not conspiracy. This is policy already in development in dozens of nations. Money is no longer just a tool, it's becoming a behavioral weapon, shaping what we buy, how we live, and even what we believe. Look back across history, and you'll see the pattern. Rome debased its currency to fund wars. Europe's kings borrowed from bankers to wage conquest. America printed to maintain global dominance. And today, algorithms decide who can access the financial system at all. Each stage of history upgraded the weapon from metal to paper, from paper to data. But the goal never changed: control. And every time the illusion cracks during inflation, crisis, or collapse, the same few players consolidate even more power. It's not chaos. It's the rhythm of empires built, inflated, collapsed, and rebuilt again on the backs of those who believe their money is safe. Lesson 1. Money is never neutral. Every monetary system serves someone's interest. When you understand who benefits from inflation, debt, or digital control, you understand the real rules of the game. Lesson 2. Debt is the perfect weapon. It doesn't kill, it enslaves. It keeps nations, corporations, and citizens trapped in perpetual dependence. Lesson 3. Real freedom requires real value. Whether it's gold, time, energy, or skills, true independence comes from owning something that cannot be printed or erased by decree. The story of money is the story of civilization, but also its story of control. What began as a tool for trade became a tool for power. And now, in a world of digital currencies and invisible debt, we stand at the edge of total financial surveillance. The next empire may not wear flags or crowns. It may exist in algorithms, watching every transaction, setting every limit, defining every choice. But history also shows that every system built on control eventually collapses under its own weight. And when it does, the question won't be who wins. It will be who still remembers what money was supposed to be. Because the moment money stopped being real, that's when freedom became the price we all pay. If this story opened your eyes, don't let it vanish into the noise. Like, share, and subscribe. Because understanding money is the first step to understanding power.